it's interesting. You and I have just finished tasting a lot of 2020s, but we tasted 2018s like about 6 months ago. What do you remember about this vintage?
What do I remember about 18? Yeah, do you find time is all muddled up at the moment? So it's difficult when I sort of think back what I was doing in 18. But I mean, it was the first of the sort of, well, I mean, we're talking about from say 2016, this kind of what they call the new normal vintages, where we've sort of gone away from what you might call maritime influenced growing seasons, where the sort of weather comes in from the Atlantic, and depending on whether you've got low or high pressure systems, can make a good or bad vintage, to a sort of, I guess you could say, growing seasons more influenced by the jet stream a little bit. So given the position of the jet stream, you can get what has gone into this pattern of like very wet early sort of parts of the season, which can create its own problems. And then this sort of sudden about turn around sort of mid to late June, and suddenly the weather becomes sort of very, very dry, very sunny, and then generally slightly earlier harvests. And I think that's what we're sort of looking at I think 18, maybe the first vintage where we started, or winemakers started to think that there might be a pattern, because, previously, historically, Bordeaux is a marginal climate, and there's been patterns sort of before. But I think 18 was the sort of first time when people started thinking, well, this is different. We haven't had growing seasons like this before. But 16 was a little bit like that. 17 a bit more challenging. And then 18 was a kind of repeat. And then we've had 19, and then we've had 20. And it's sort of become quickly accepted that we've gone into a kind of new normal. And so that creates its own challenges, but it also creates its own opportunities, and sort of that. And then we come down to terroir and winemaking and so on.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that was the year that had a lot of rain in the spring, that mildew problem, especially for the biodynamic properties.
Yeah.
The famous Chateau Palmer that everybody wanted to buy after your score.
What did I score it? I can't remember.
I don't remember, but it was really high. What else? And other properties of a similar, aesthetic, biodynamics, obviously are very challenged when you have those sorts of episodes, because you can't do much in the vineyard.
Yeah. I mean, when you've got like a lot of rain, you've got to be, well, how much time are you spending in the vineyard? Are you getting in there to sort of spray and protect your vines? So it kind of starts to sort out those winemakers that do spend time in their vineyards and others that don't. And likewise, when it becomes very dry, it's about water efficiency. How good are your vines at maintaining moisture when it becomes very dry? Because if you get hydric stress, and the vine gets very fatigued, and you can look in the vineyard and you see that the leaves are curling and becoming brown, and your vines are stressed, and so the vine shuts down, and you can have this sort of strange problem where it's kind of sunny, but it's not creating sugar. So you get this kind of, you can get sort of under-ripeness in a warm growing season. So it throws up all these other sort of challenges, and it comes down to terroir and winemaking.
Yeah, you make a really good point. A lot of times people associate warm vintages with opulent wines, and sometimes that is the case. But if it's too warm, you might actually get the opposite, where the vines shut down. They try to preserve their basically they try to stay alive. They conserve their energy to stay alive, and you end up with these wines that are underripe because the tannins have never ripened.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, that's like the new normal, and that's like previously it was like, it is warm and sunny, therefore the wines are ripe and fruit driven, but it's not quite that anymore.
Yeah,